Should you buy an Audi R8 now that prices continue to drop after a historic high? In this video we'll dissect the latest developments in the V8 and V10 markets, compare them to the general market trends, investigate the inventory dynamics, and finally assess what all of this means for you as a buyer. You're probably here for the price trends, so let's get into it. We'll be covering the US market and we'll start with the V8s. In the next market update, the German one will be included as well. Over here we have the price development for the V8 market, split by the pre-facelift and facelifted cars. And this shows that prices fell rapidly after the pandemic price top, but fell less quickly during 2023. This means that pre-facelift prices are down by 6.6% compared to last year, and that this is 9.6% for the facelifted cars. In monetary terms we're looking at $5.5 and $9.4 thousand respectively. Now compared to the market top, we're looking at losses of 15.7% and 18.1%. Significant numbers that in the case of the facelift version brought values down to pre-pandemic levels. Corrected for inflation, V8s are then also cheaper than at the end of 2019. Continuing with the V10s, we can see a similar price pattern. Over here we have the prices for the automatic first generation V10s. You can see that both the Plus and base models are included, but that the GTs are excluded. The market size for the latter one is too small. To some extent, this also goes for the Plus models. We can see a very large price uncertainty. Yet, prices appear to be trending down slowly since the summer of 2022. Consequently, they're down by only 5.2% compared to last year, equaling $8,000. If we zoom in on the base model, we can see trends that are more similar to what we saw in the V8 market. A big increase followed by a decline and a decrease in the depreciation rate. For the year-over-year decrease, this means that we're looking at 0.4% or $500 for the facelifts and 5% or $5,000 for the pre-facelifts. Note that the price uncertainty was large last September as there were only a few cars for sale. Therefore, I think it makes sense to rely more on the 5% than on the 0.4%. Naturally, also these prices are below their pre-pandemic values once you adjust them for inflation. Let's move on now to the second generation pre-facelift cars. These are the first ones with the updated angular design. You can see that the graph is split by the base and plus models, and for the base models also by the quattro and two-wheel driven versions. The trends depict a pattern that is akin to the general market trend. A typical boom, followed by a bust. The quattro base models increased, for instance, by 27.3% between January 2020 and May 2022, but are currently 17.9% under their market top. For the year-over-year decrease, this means that we end up with a depreciation rate of 9.3%. For the two-wheel driven variant, this is 7.3%. And the same number goes for the pluses. Now looking at the base models, we can see that the two-wheel driven variant is currently more expensive than the quattro variant. But this results from a difference in the mileage. Corrected for this, the trend of the two-wheel driven variant is the same as for the quattro. Now the depreciation rate since the market top has been relatively high. So unsurprisingly, if we look at the inflation adjusted trends, we can see that both the base and the pluses are below their pre-pandemic price level. And with that it's time to move on to the last generation. Over here we have the prices for the second generation V10s after the facelift. Both the base and the performance models are included. The GTs are excluded as supply is still limited. We can see the by now familiar trend. Prices increased up until mid-2022, decreased rapidly in the second half of 2022 and decreased less quickly during 2023. And this means that the base model is down by 7.6% and the performance model by 7.5%, equaling $14,000 and $16.2 thousand respectively. However, there's more going on here than meets the eye. Because these cars are relatively new, there are some differences in depreciation rates between the model years. 2022 base models lost, for example, 9.3%, but 2021's only 5.7%. And the same dynamics apply to the performance market, so that's important to take note of if you're in the market for one of these cars. Now the R8 experts must have noticed that I skipped two important segments, the manual V10 and V8s. That's because they deserve a separate mention. Over here we have a price trend for the manuals, split by the V8s and V10s, and the pre-facelift and facelifted cars. Now before we jump into the numbers, we need to talk about the trends themselves. Starting with the V10s, we can see that the trend has a low correlation to the market trend. Values of course soared since the pandemic, topped but didn't really decrease after mid-2022. They stayed at approximately the same level, and this puts it in the selected group of cars for which values stayed approximately at the market top. I have a separate video for the other cars that made it to this list. Now the reliability of the exact points in this trend is low due to the small market size. We're therefore not going to look at the exact numbers. It's more useful to look at the confidence interval and the overall trend. The same applies to the V8 facelift market. Only a handful of them are for sale at any given time. The V8 pre-facelift market, however, is the largest one over here, meaning that this trend is more reliable. We can see that the drop after the market top was slightly lower than typical, and that this also applies to the decrease during last year. V8 pre-facelift manuals only lost 4.1%, and this drop is mainly the result of the last 3 months. During 2023, prices were stable. Alright, we covered a lot of numbers, so let's pull everything together into one graph. Over here we have the results for all different models, and this reveals that the automatic models are down by 7.3% on average. First generation V10s lost slightly less, at an average of 5.1%, while second generation V10s and first generation V8s sit between 7 and 8%. The V8 pre-facelift manual lost the least, and in all likelihood other manuals would also end up somewhere at the top here. Now during this video I talked a few times about the market trend. It's namely important to place these numbers in context. Car prices of course surged during the pandemic, topped mid-2022 and then decreased with above average rates. Only a handful of markets remained stable after they topped. In the beginning of the summer of 2023 though, we saw that the depreciation rates in some markets started to decrease to more normal values. And this latter development is what we see in the automatic R8 market. It resembled more or less what happened in the broader market. So let's put some numbers behind this. Over here we have the US year-over-year price changes for almost all cars that feature on my channel. On the horizontal axis we have the price change compared to last year in percentages, and on the vertical axis we have the number of cars to which this change applies. The average decrease during last year was 8%, and most cars lost between 13 and 4%. So this means that the automatic Audi R8s lost approximately the same as the market. V10s of the first generation did slightly better at 5%, and the V8 manuals did significantly better at 4.1%. Now this is not a surprising result. We already saw that the price trends had a high resemblance to the market trend, and these numbers confirm that. In other words, R8s mostly moved with the trend. Now so far we talked about the current price behavior. But we of course all want to know what will happen in the future. Nobody can predict this and we can only speculate. Yet, based on what I'm seeing in the data, an acceleration of the current depreciation rate seems unlikely to me. A continuation of the current rate seems more likely. The inventory data gives some clues. Looking at the percentage of unsold cars, we can see that these numbers rapidly increased after the summer of 2022. This is when prices started to tank at above normal rates. During 2023 though, the rates decreased, meaning that a smaller percentage of inventory wasn't sold after 3 months. This, of course, matches with the decrease in the depreciation rates that we saw earlier. We can also see that V8s tend to sell a bit slower than the V10s. Now looking at the price changes for this unsold inventory, we can see a massive drop after the market top, followed by a slight increase during most of 2023. During the last 3 months, discount rates decreased a bit, but it's difficult to say at this point if it is a winter effect or an indicator of a large price decrease. Nevertheless, I don't think that there are any extremely worrisome signs visible in the inventory data. Let's wrap up and conclude. Should you buy an Audi R8 if you care about values, now that prices are coming down from historic heights? Only you can answer that question. But if you decide to do so, you should do it with your eyes wide open. Buying now means that, in all likelihood, you buy after the largest price decrease. This occurred in the second half of 2022. During 2023, the market normalized somewhat. For you as a buyer, this means that it makes sense to expect a yearly loss of at least 5 to 8% if you go for an automatic model. First generation V10s sit more towards the 5%, while the rest leans more towards the 8%. These numbers are aligned with the market trend, so any changes in the general market conditions are likely to affect these rates. Manuals appear to have lost less or even nothing, but you pay a premium for them and the price uncertainty is larger. Looking to the future, we can only speculate what might happen, but there are no indicators that point towards a vast increase in depreciation rates. Real prices are below their pre-pandemic level, signaling that the market is not even close to being as inflated as in mid-2022, and cars have been selling quicker and quicker during 2023, indicating a slight increase in the scarcity level, something that typically supports prices. A continuation of the current trend seems therefore most likely to me. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car markets but would like to see a video for a different car, head over to my channel. Over there you'll find data-driven market analysis for a large variety of cars. Can't find the car you're looking for? Let me know the name of the car by commenting it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I'll make a video about it. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.